Oh, what's up, everybody? It's Comic Book Level Up.
Hey, this is a new show we did. It's a thing tonight,
It's a new show we're doing.
right now.
It's already over. All right, good night, everybody.
This is just a test run. It failed. 18 seconds in. Charlie, we'll get you next time.
Yeah, it's definitely not Charlie's fault.
Charlie could be like, what's that Jimmy Kimmel that he does that Matt Damon thing? Charlie could be
Yes.
like, oh,
Yep.
it's time
Didn't
for
have
Charlie
time.
Stickney. Oh, I didn't have time.
Yep.
We missed you. You're so close. So close. So how are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am well. I am well. I'm
You want to
trying to
tell?
chest.
Oh, yeah.
I want to make sure that we're broadcasting first, so I want to make sure that we're out
I've
there.
got it is up on Burrito at least.
Okay.
That one is going.
Yeah, it was supposed to go on my Facebook. I don't know if it is, but I'm going to share the burrito link out. We'll get it up. By the way,
There
for
we
those
go.
who are on our channel that we were supposed to have it on, it didn't work out for us.
Yeah, we're still getting verified by YouTube. So
Right.
next time.
So that's a thing. But we'll get this shared out to everybody. So I got to do that for a second. Can you just introduce yourself for people who don't know you? I mean, people should.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're
I
Todd
can.
Reed. But yeah.
My name is Todd. I'm a co-host at Comic Burrito. I do proofing and editing mostly for Travis, but for a couple other people in comics. I do some logo design. I make stickers. I like graphic design. If you like the graphics that you see on this channel / show, let me know. If you don't, I don't have the self-esteem to handle negative criticism. So just keep that one to yourself. But yeah, and I really like comics. I work part-time at my comic book shop as well. I really love to read comics and other things too, but comics I've been reading since I was 8. It's been a couple years since then, and they're one of my big passions, especially from a fan. I do dabble, I guess, a little pro amateurly
Right.
in them, but for the most part,
You
it's very.
dabble.
I dabble, but for the most part, it's just as a fan, and I love them. So yeah, that's me. Hey, co-host, if you're done checking things, why don't you let people know who you are?
I will.
Or I'll do it for you.
No, everything's shared. So I'm Travis Gibb. I create amazing books like Broke Down 4 Dead Bodies and Cthulhu Invades Wonderland and Coins of Judas and all sorts of stuff.
Granite State
Punk. Yeah, all sorts of stuff that's coming out that we'll talk about in nauseum throughout these shows. But here is what this is all about. So Comic Book Level Up is about, I'm on a path where I just got into Diamond, right? In January, I start my Diamond career. And I don't know what the hell I'm doing, Todd. Like, I have gone to the past of what I can possibly accomplish. So I was like, I've made some friends over the years, and I think we can invite some of those friends and pros over here and talk about what leveling up means to them. The other thing that doesn't happen to me very often when I go on shows is we don't talk about really that person's career. Because a lot of these people have vast careers, but we're only talking about the newest thing. So we're going to dive into these people. We're going to ask some really serious questions and kind of talk about them. And what's great about it is Todd's here from the Burrito because he's a great co-host, but he's also a fan. He's a fan of all these books. Everybody who we have on here, he's going to know the properties. And so I can ask things that are very poignant to as a comic creator. He can ask things as a fan. And hopefully between the two, we'll be able to really accomplish something. That's the plan.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out, but so far that is what we aim to accomplish.
Right. We're too scared. You can tell that we're not fully in, or we'd be on Twitch because that's where all the cool kids are here.
Yeah.
We're scared of Twitch.
Yeah, and it'll probably get set up soon. I don't know what Twitch is. I watched one thing on Twitch, and that's my Twitch knowledge.
Is it when you play D&D? Is it only on Twitch?
When I watch D&D?
Yeah, when you watch, is it a D&D show? I bet you it is.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty large D&D show that a lot of people watch.
But yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to do this every other week. It's not going to be a weekly show. We're going to do it every other week. The next little time, we're going to kind of do it sporadically because we're kind of figuring out the format, trying to get it right. But yeah, that's the plan. So that's our show. And we're going to have fun.
We'll have another one in December. We'll have another one in December, and then come January, hopefully we'll be at the every other week. But yeah, if you have thoughts during this, leave comments, reach out to us because you probably know us, or
Right.
reach out if you're watching these first ones. If you have suggestions or thoughts about what we can change to make better or make it easier to just like consume, let us know.
Yeah, and so the one thing that we got to talk about beforehand. So a lot of people are going to message us and go, "Oh, we want to be on this. I want you to promote my Kickstarter." It's not what it's for. Will we talk about Kickstarters? Absolutely. Will we talk about what you're doing? Absolutely. That's the case. But it's not for. In fact, we've set up a couple of rules on what you have to qualify to be on this show. You have to have been published by someone who's not yourself. And it's not that we don't acknowledge self-publishing because we think self-publishing is awesome, but you have to have been published by someone else. Someone else had to say, "Hey, I'm going to take a chance on you." So that was the first one. The second thing, which is a little bit harder to like describe, is you have to have a completed work. Wait, hold on. Someone's talking crap. We've made it. Somebody's already talking crap. So Travis, you're going to fight me for Monday slot? I'll see how it is. Yeah, that's right. I'm fighting for the Monday slot.
Yeah.
So you had to have a finished work. So like a trade paperback of a volume. Doesn't mean it has to be like your whole story, but that's our two rules to join this.
Yep.
So.
As of now.
Yeah. Well, once we have a guest we don't like, we'll just add more rules to make.
It's like, oh, and we can't be a co-publisher of Scout Comics. Oh,
right. Awkward. Speaking of co-publishers, let's invite our first guest up.
Oh, man.
Former co-publishers, because he's no longer.
Yes.
Charlie Stickney.
Yes. Oh, well, actually, let's do the show intro, and then we're going to go right into Charlie. Yeah, that's right. So this is Comic Book Level Up.
Let's do it. Look at that, Charlie. You had a cool video.
I did. I do want to say, though, in case anyone missed the opening, when you both basically said I was the Matt Damon of comics,
right.
I'm going to go with that. And, because that means I've already leveled up on your show. And, we can just call it a night.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I would like that whole quote from my wife as well, that I'll be telling her later. Just so she knows that's how people think of me in the comic book industry.
Yep. The Matt if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Charlie Stickney is the Matt Damon of comics.
Yes.
You're not the Ben Affleck. Let's make that clear. But you are Matt Damon.
It's pretty good.
You're not going to play Batman, but you may play second Loki to Tom Hiddleston.
Or Jason Bourne. That's rad.
Right. And I will stay out of the Betty Ford clinic, so it's all good.
So how are you tonight, Charlie?
I am good. It's great to be here, field testing your show to find out where the problems are. So I'm glad to be your guinea pig, and I'm looking forward to it.
We appreciate it.
We needed somebody. We're already using Restream.
Somebody.
We're already using Restream, so I'm already out of my element. I don't know what to do. I'm not even in control. Todd hits all the buttons. I don't even know like how that works.
Yeah, that's me.
So that makes
I'm sure
me
we
sad.
can all agree that's probably for the best.
It moves everybody when I do the chat.
And that's why I loved working with David.
Because Matt Damon is Charlie Stickney of movies. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I was thinking, top of the show.
Okay.
Let's get the plug. Let's do the plug first, and then we can let's do the meat after that. That sounds graphic. But let's. What do you got going right now, Charlie?
Well, I wouldn't call it a plug or meat, but I do have a kick. I think it's just coming from your comic burrito background. it's hard to sort of leave the food metaphors behind.
Probably it. It's true.
But yeah, no, I have the game, which I know Travis is very excited about that it's finally come back.
Huge
And
fan.
we have about another 40 hours or so of that campaign. So if
As
you want
of
to check that out,
recording.
yeah, as of this recording, you can go over and check that out. But
There might be a link in the description that people could go hit and go over there.
Yeah, and if you go to my Twitter feed, it's the pin link, so you can get there too. So
You could look here
whatever it
too
takes.
if you want to see the kind of things you could get. There you go. There's
Yeah,
a pledge for every.
it's a
There's a pledge for everyone.
and it's a really
And I've
fun
been-
book. I mean, go ahead, Travis.
I've been complaining about the lack of this book for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I feel. Like since the first one, I was a huge fan of the game. I loved it. I thought it was a great first issue. Super excited about it. In fact, almost every time that he's done a Kickstarter since then, I've been like, "That's great, but it's not the game." So I'm excited.
Well, and I think that when we're talking about level up and things that can happen, I mean, that's one of the things that I think it's always important to think about is how your book's going to, roll out, whether it's in the direct market, whether it's on Kickstarter, what's your game plan for getting out more issues? Because at the end of the day, life happens. And I had a very concrete, yes, if we hit our total, maybe David will get flown out for that in and out date. But I had a very concrete plan because we were doing White Ash, and Connor was on a great pace for doing that, and we were going to do the game on the side, which is going to be a little bit of a faster paced book. He's going to be able to flip back and forth between drawing both. And then Connor had a kid, and then he and his wife had another kid, and so that seemed to change the amount of work he could get done.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Ridiculous.
I'm going to write that down. That's going to be important.
Yes, they ruin everything. But the but like what happened was, White Ash was doing well, so we prioritized that for a little while because we didn't want to lose momentum with White Ash. So we were rolling forward with that, but we always wanted to be doing the game. So now that we've reached a point where there's a good critical mass, White Ash is rolling, we're going to roll back and finish this first arc of the game. So that like the first volume will be out, and then we're going to figure out basically how to go forward to balance the two, whether there's different artists brought in to balance things out, or whether it's something that Connor can expand his bandwidth to take on and do both.
Was that discussed when Galarian happened as well?
Well, when Galarian, I mean, from the beginning, the thought was bring in a different artist because Connor can't draw anything. No one can draw everything.
I was just curious if that was because of kid or because that's a lot.
It was two things. One, I wanted to have a woman draw that series.
Nice. That's smart.
I wanted to have some. If I was hoping to be able to have a female artist working on that series, and being able to work with Romina Mornelli has been incredible. She is so incredibly talented. And so she's in some ways become the face or the hand of that book, and Connor can be doing that. And I think the more you're doing, the less you can work with a limited pool of people. You need to start expanding that pool because, as Travis knows, sometimes things happen to different artists. There's only so long that sometimes if you're not making enough money that they can commit to doing a series. We've been really fortunate with the crowdfunding side of the White Ash universe and the things that I do there, that all of those series are well funded. So I can pay people real wages, and we can look to have them on for a period of time, and I can plan out long form storytelling, which I think, when you're talking again about leveling up, you have to think about where that money's coming from. And I think that ultimately pushes a lot of creators to do short form series. You're going to do a one shot, or you're going to do a 3 to 4 issue series because that you can hopefully raise money to do that. And I have been able to build a following so I can plan bigger things. And I know that, one issue of one of my books will be able to pay for 2 or 3 books from different universes. So we can just keep churning things out and expanding the universe for White Ash and for the other things I'm doing as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
one
awesome.
of the things I think is super interesting about you, Charlie, and the way you create things. So, and I'm gonna tell a little story about how I found White Ash. So I'm part of Tyler James's comic launch, and he talks about you a lot, and he pointed me to it. He's like, one of the things that he does really well, he sends out these postcards and all the little tchotchke little things that you do with the packaging and all that, which I think is great. So I looked at it, and I remember looking at the book and going, besides Connor Hughes being an amazing artist, like, I don't get what is super special about this book. I'll be honest. Like, I was like, I don't get how he's raising this amount of funds. Is it just branding and marketing? And then when I read it, you get the story and you get the deeper levels of White Ash, you really find the love of the story. And then one of the things that I think you have really proven beyond, and it's so crazy when I think about the way I came to tackle comics. My goal is exactly what you said. I need to do as many series as I can, 4 issues, 5 issues. Get my trades out so I can prove that I can do this. Where if I really look at the people who I love, who've created comics, they just did long form storytelling, right? And it's just kind of missing in the modern indie comic stuff. You look at Strangers in Paradise or Bone or, even Grendel or any of the things that happened, Sin City, all these things were long form storytelling. They weren't these, direct to trade things. And I think that you've set that trend. And I think we see it. The people who are doing what you're doing work like a Sync. I'm struggling to think of other people, but there's other people who do just the long form, or the Mesozoic High School Academy. You're seeing that growth, the Nightwolf, and having that. So was that intentional from the start, or did you just stumble upon that later?
I mean, I always set out to do a big epic story, right? I think I had in my mind different endpoints where I could end it a lot earlier if things weren't going well. But I think like the primary difference between the direct market and Kickstarter is that in the direct market, your customers are shops, right? And they only have so much shelf space, and they have to get people excited every time they come in on Wednesday about this new book that's coming out. And they know that there's going to be some attrition because they can only keep people excited so long because they're doing all the work, right? And so they prematurely cut your titles down, and so the ordering between issue number 1 and issue number 2, there's an automatic drop. Like, it doesn't matter how good the book
it's at
is.
least
like,
half.
Right. So that's going to hit the and so over time, just because it's set up there's going to be attrition because they need to devote shelf space to the new hot thing that comes in. Your thing is going to get moved to the back. And, you can't control that marketing. It doesn't matter what publisher you're working with. The publisher can only do so much. But your book is going to become less and less interesting to the store owner, unless it's Saga, right? And like, or The Walking Dead, like unless
Something's
it's one
killing
of 2
the
titles,
children.
something's killing,
There's a handful that don't do that, but 99% of books, we're already ordering a fourth of what we got for number 1.
Right. And so, but the thing about those books is you have the trades on stock, right? You're not trying to get people to come new to the issue 30. You're like, here are the 3 trades of Saga, and then pick up these 2 issues and you're caught up. So you're offering them the whole story. There's almost no other, besides those, series that we just named. For other series, you don't have the last 7 issues of Avengers number, whatever on the shelf. So you can't catch people up to that, right? But on Kickstarter, you can't. If you launch something on Kickstarter and you get 300 for your first book, which is roughly what I did, and people like it, they're going to come back. And then you have a stronger base that's starting your day 1. And so your book gets off to a better start. And people see that because you're not just offering into. So every time you have a Kickstarter, it's this way for new readers to find your thing and it's you marketing it, so you have the passion. So you're able to say to people, hey, we're doing long form epic thing. And they're like, oh my God, I've missed out on this thing that's now got, 400 or 500 pages of comics and story. Oh, and I can get it for this discounted price if I get it on day 1 or 2. I'm going to dive into that and check it out. And so like, I think the potential there is for building long-term stories in a way that doesn't exist in the direct market. So I think it lends itself better to that. And then it depends on the type of story you're telling. For me, I have huge epic narratives that I'm always looking to tell. But if you don't have interesting characters and relationships that people want to see where those are going, it's hard to get them to be engaged. My background is when I first came, I moved out to LA right after college. I was looking to either go to New York City, I went to college in New York, and be a comic book writer or an inker, or go into the film industry. And I had a job offer in LA, so that brought me out to LA. And the loved at the time, the kind of films that were making waves in the smaller $20 to $50 million level, which was the range I thought I might be able to break in, were romantic comedies. And I love the romantic comedy. So a lot of my early work was romantic comedies, but they were genre-based romantic comedies. I got a guy who had a cell phone who could call 6 hours into the future. And then it became kind of a love triangle between him and his future self and this girl, and who was in the know and things like that. So that was the kind of stuff that in the heels of Click and Serendipity and those films. And
I love Serendipity.
That's and that's the kind of stuff that I still write now. White Ash is a will they or won't they get together. You introduce a love triangle, you have like those characters, and so as the story unfolds, you're giving the backdrop, but people are also tuning in to see, are they going to hook up at some point? How racy is this going to get? Where is that relationship going? Is it going to have consequences? How does that change everything? And so I think if you have to start thinking on multiple levels when you're trying to do something long form. Here's my big epic world that I want to share with you. It's who are these characters? How are they as that big holds? And that's how you're able to hook different types of people and get them to really care about these people. And want to see where the story goes. So I think that's the other special sauce beyond Connor Hughes. It's create characters that people care about, and then put them through them to have these cliffhangers. And the cliffhangers can be both mental pearl, but also emotional jeopardy. And so it's not just to see, is someone going to defeat the villains? Is he going to get the girl? Is the girl going to get the girl? Is the guy going to get the guy? Whatever it is, that's what really, for me, look at Saga, right? That's also the secret sauce of Saga. It's an epic romance, and it's Romeo and Juliet. It's there's actually a lot of similarities, I would say, between Saga and White Ash, which I did not know about. When I wrote, I had scripts for White Ash before I even read Saga. It was I was like, oh, there's a lot of parallels here, but I think that's why it hooked in a whole new generation of readers, was because the focus was love. It was a space fantasy, but it is also that forbidden love, and will they get together? And are they going to cross the galaxy? That's that relationship that you buy into. And so I think when you have that kind of emotional jeopardy, you can do the long form thing because people want to see how that story ends. Maybe even more than, if you what are the new fantasy realms that you're bringing into play, and organically or not? How do you make all that work? That's interesting, but really, are things going to work out between these?
Yeah, making the world a backdrop to the actual story is is good. You can make the most interesting story, and that's trying to get people to be a part of your D&D campaign. The relationships and the deeper meaning to everything is totally what will hook people for longer. And White Ash does that phenomenally. I learned about White Ash through Bearded Comic Bro, because he was just going crazy when he first, when that became a thing in his life. Everybody around him knew. and I'm very happy. I'm very happy that it did, because I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And I saw the description much like Travis, and I was like, he's really, really into this book for, I'm not sure what it is. So digging into it. And it really is the pseudo Romeo and Juliet, but there's so many more layers to it, and it's the triangle, and it's the also just like the generational differences that I feel like a lot of things really resonate, and it's in a fun backdrop. Like, who doesn't like a good fantasy world, especially a fantasy world in modern times? Like, it's got that little extra, it's that garnish to make it all like pop. And yeah, I love it. So you're saying the rom-com came before the world? Because that was going to be one of my questions, is did you world build and then have a story on top of it, or did the characters show up and then it became a fantasy world?
Well, I knew I wanted to do and I'll happy to spoil it a little bit, because I think we're way past that. People can pick it up, but like where you had elves and dwarves in rural Pennsylvania, and I wanted, or in our world, and I wanted to explore that forbidden romance between an elf and a dwarf in a modern. See, that was what was interesting. And then it was, how do I tell the story? What's the world that I want to build around that story that makes that story make sense? But at the core, it was really, okay, I'll give you the inspiration for it was actually watching The Hobbit. And I'm watching The Hobbit, and I'm like, like this has got some good parts, but I knew I wasn't loving it because I'm sitting there watching the movie and I'm thinking about other things. And I'm watching like the elf dwarf romance. I'm like, well, this is interesting. I feel like it's an underdeveloped subplot that they're going to bring to some kind of conclusion. But it's not really like, it's just a thing that's in this movie. Boy, that would be interesting if it wasn't in, I feels like a TV show or something that you would see on TV. I'm sure there's one where it's like a modern CW show where it's like elves and dwarves. I'm like, no, there isn't. Huh. So for me, it felt like something that there should have already been there, and I knew that I would have watched. And so I was like, let me think about like what that story is. And so it was off the elf dwarf romance, put it in a modern setting, now start building a world around it. And then I was off and running. And then it was like, what format's the best format to tell this story? Because I've worked in film, I've worked in animation, and it was really like right now it was comic able to tell that story and actually start getting it out to people.
That's awesome.
Well, one of the things, getting to the nuts and bolts of White Ash, so you get White Ash, you did the Kickstarter, you did very successful, and then you went to the direct market. Now, I assume at the time that was kind of a level up for you, right? Like, or at least you felt that way. I'm going to bring White Ash out. I think that's most people. Oh, that's look at that. I don't even have that.
The direct market, the standard size comics that you can get through the direct market.
Right. So you go to the direct market.
He has
and you
the
have
small
to make,
one.
Right. He has small. Yeah, I have the small, little bitty one. Yeah. And you had to, format your stuff and add pages or remove pages, which I think is fascinating. And so cool that I can get the Kickstarter version. It's going to be very different from the Scout version because of those things. And not just in like Image Comics. So I don't know if you've ever, did I lose you guys?
Oh,
no.
Sorry. Everything disappeared for a second. I don't know who does Furthest Place from Here, Todd. I can't think of his name right now. I don't know. Rosenberg, Matthew Rosenberg.
Yes. Yep.
Every trade that he's ever done, he changes the ending in the trades, believe it or not. And not because he means to. He's just like, I could do it better because it's stuff. But you did it for like a fabricant. So what was that like? Doing that with White Ash and going to the next market and seeing a wider audience and having, I know that you've shared privately with me like your covers, you wish you went a different way and things like that. So can you talk about that for a little bit and how that experience was?
Sure. I mean, everyone has to think why they want to go to the direct market, right? And I think there's a lot more visibility in the direct market than there is on Kickstarter. That said, at the time, I was really happy being on Kickstarter because I was building a fan base and I was making money. And when you're building a fan base and making money, you don't have a lot to complain about.
Right.
But the other side of it is if you're looking to maybe do anything else, like say film or television, 4 years ago, the direct, it was crucial market piece. So that was part of my calculus was, because I think we all want to give our series life beyond comics. Now I'm very happy. Like I will go on the record and say I am very happy having this just be a comic book, but like, I'm not going to say no if someone wanted to do a TV series with it. But and having worked in worked in animation, other things, talking with my agent, it was we should probably get this published somewhere too. Which led to it, and then there was a conversation with Scout, and actually I don't know if you know Kevin Joseph who does Tart, but Kevin I knew through Kickstarter, and he was having a conversation about them picking up Tart. And because Kevin is one of the best guys in the world, he was like, well, if you like my book, you know what you'd really like. And it's like amazing. Like he is just that.
He's so good.
Kind.
He's so good.
and Tart is a great book. So like it was nice to be mentioned in the same breath as that. And so then they looked at my book too, and then they came over to talk to me. I think this was at like 2018, 19 San Diego Comic-Con, and I was talking with the company, and I thought it was worth giving Scout a shot because Scout was on the upswing. I felt like it would be a great home to bring my book. They didn't have too much going out. We could kind of stand out there. And this is the other thing I would say to any creator who is looking to go to the direct market, figure out the economics of it first, because you want to be able to create your book and not go broke. And if you look at different companies and you think about what kind of return, you can look at sites like Comic-Con. It's a little bit harder now, but you can still get a sense of how their issues are selling. From a different company, you can see what the numbers are, and then you can start doing the calculus in terms of the math, in terms of how much return there's going to be getting back. And so I started cranking the numbers and thought if I wanted to do White Ash as an ongoing series, I would probably need to be selling, say, 8,000 copies per issue to be able to pay for the things because I pay everyone who works on. We've set those standards because of the Kickstarters. So it's, like that was the magic number I kind of needed to hit. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to hit that with Scout, but it doesn't matter because I've already paid for things through Kickstarter. And so then the other calculus is like, I had always written for Kickstarter, which meant I wrote the books the length that I thought the story needed to be, as opposed to what I thought the direct market needed it to be. So the first Kickstarter version of White Ash is a 52-page book. And it gets to what I like to call the big hook reveal of the story. And so like the first conversation I had with Scout is like, we love this, but 52 pages is a bit too long for that first issue. Can you find a break point in the middle of it? And so I said, sure. And so we reworked the story, and I started looking at like the rest of it and what issues could we break up, because I had a 40-page issue, what could be a 32-page issue. So what was 4 issues on Kickstarter became 6 issues through the direct market. And while I think that is great from a creator standpoint, from a company standpoint, to be able to offer new content, I think it did not help White Ash get off to a great start in the direct market, because the hook of the series was in issue 2, an issue that a lot of stores did not end up ordering. So it's like, if you want to get people, you need to get the hook of your series. And again, if I had been writing for the direct market, I would have written a book with a 20 to 24 page hook, right? Yeah. And instead, I'd written this big epic thing. I mean, now going back and looking, I think the first issue of Saga is 40 pages, right? Like, so there are companies that sort of do that. And so for me going forward, I was like, you know what? I'm going to write to these issues, and we're going to put them out, and we'll just price it up and make sure it's hitting the beats. Sort of like what I was thinking when I came to the direct market. And then to make it even more fun, we put out 3 issues, and then the pandemic hit and issues stopped. And, stores were able to, reorder things. And that kind of killed a lot of the momentum. With White Ash in the direct market. And I love the fact that that the first art came out through the direct market. I love that we put the trade out. I love that we put the Galarian one shot
Right.
but I can control so much more in terms of what I'm trying to do in terms of telling the story. It is a beautiful cover. It is a beautiful cover.
It's metal.
It's metal. It is.
This is the metal. Yeah.
Not to break up the conversation, does White Ash have one of those boxes? Because I have the steak box, I have the electric black box. Does White Ash have a box? Do I need to go buy a box?
There is you don't need to.
Oh, there
but
is?
there is a box.
I like those boxes. No, I like.
Yeah.
It's not even about the box. It's like grabbing my stuff that I already have to put in that box.
Mhm.
Like that's what I want to do. It has nothing to do with what's already in there.
That's what I have my electric black for.
Yeah, there's the comic deck. So I mean, I'm really happy with how that rolled out. But going back, there was a lot of other things I would have done different. Another thing that I would have done different is and I think I may have talked to you about this, Travis, is when I was looking to do the series, I was overthinking things. I thought, all right, so we had all these covers that we did for the Kickstarter, but let's go in a different direction. I'm seeing Gideon Falls that coming out, and this is a great series. Have all these graphic designy shots of the town. I was like, well, let's feature the town. And so rather than featuring sexy elves, I was like, let's have a tree on the of the first issue.
Right.
And beautiful illustration, right? It's a beautiful illustration.
Oh,
but
I have another way people can look at it.
But if you're trying to sell something, like you look at these two covers, which cover are people picking up?
Yep.
Right.
Well, I'm weird, and it would be White Ash, but I'm not. That's not going to be your typical response,
right? And that's like that's that's the calculus that going back to thinking like when we put Glaring out as a one shot, that was kind of part of the calculus for that kinds of covers out for that book. But we want to make sure that we're selling, hey, there's attractive elves in this book too. You need the cover to get people to open the book. Yep. And I think writers sometimes just overthink this. Stores order based on cover and publisher and then talent, right? And if they don't know the talent, it defaults to this publisher has a range that we order from. Is it a number one? And what's this cover look like? And beyond that, they don't care if you're not a name that has a name in the direct market. So you need that cover. It's going to make them say, oh, I can sell 3 of those because I know 3 guys in my shop who are going to buy it. And if they order 4, then someone else, might pick that book up and read it. I think Zenescope does a really nice thing where they have a sexy kind cover and they have a regular cover.
They do. Yeah.
Right. And so they and they can sell books. So if you're a reader and that cover doesn't speak to you, you can still follow the character, but they can also sell the sexy covers.
Yeah.
So Charlie, hold on. We got a lot of because I promised you an hour. We're going to definitely go over an hour, so hopefully that's not a problem. Because I know you're going. But I want to go to the next level up, in my opinion, for you with White Ash specifically. So that's it with spinoffs, right? Everyone's trying to get a spinoff, and not only do we have Galarian, but I just found out with the cover of the game 2 that the game is in the White Ash universe. Correct?
Well, I'm branding everything going forward on Kickstarter under my White Ash Comics imprint.
Okay.
That said, there could be crossovers between all of my books at some point in the future. But even things like I have the series I'm writing, How I Slept My Way Through College and Other Tales from Freshman Year. There's a character doing Galarian cosplay in the next issue. So the universe is I'm finding ways to interconnect, the universes that I'm building in organic ways that make sense to the narratives.
Is that mean in that universe, it is a comic? So the comic is a comic in your universe?
In How I Slept My Way Through College, White Ash and Galarian are comics that those characters would read. Yes.
So they're comics within comics. That's cool. It's meta as soon as you open it.
But Ken,
but for the game,
I mean, Galarian's passed away, so she can't play the game. But can other characters of White Ash play the game, or did Galarian start the game?
Well, I will say this. I mean, we're running. We also I have. And Todd, I don't know whether you've mostly gotten the book through the direct market or you've gotten anything on Kickstarter, but the Galarian series that we have running, the Galarian series that we have running on Kickstarter, it takes place 3,000 years ago in Elfheim, but it also takes place in 1870s New York. There's going to be a lot more of that character that ties into like why White Ash is in, like it's all part of the same story.
Yeah.
So
it could have been White Ash prequel. You just called it Galarian, right?
Yeah,
that's what I've always assumed.
We're actually going to be like it's basically Galarian year one. If you want to like use it in that thing, like it's how she became Galarian, but it's also going to introduce some other things into the White Ash universe. We'll be doing more Galarian because people love Galarian. So don't worry.
Great. And I like that you're using comic lingo. As soon as you put year one next to it, everyone's like, "Oh, I get it. It's a prequel and where it starts." Got it.
I mean, I would tag that. What's that?
You did a flashback in 5 in the back part of second part of 5, 6, because you kind of label it weird, but the back part of it was a flashback of this last issue.
Yeah.
Spoilers for those who haven't read.
So we've got definitely, I think about all of that. When I'm building the White Ash universe, there's a timeline that goes back about 3,000 years. That said, at the end of the day, it's all about storytelling, right? And you have to find ways to engage people, to want them to keep reading. Because the smaller the town, the bigger the secrets. Because I think like it's those reveals that keep unfolding that make people realize that, oh my goodness, as much as I thought I knew this story, there's more there. Oh, there's more there. There's this reveal. And stacking up those reveals, it's really hard to wait. I will say that. Like there is some stuff that's happened in the first issue or two that is going to pay off later on that people don't know about. And it's just hard to sit on that. They're like, oh, this panel there? Yeah, that's why Connor drew that panel there, because it's gonna it's just something that we can see and say, okay, in issue 20, we're coming back to that. And being able to, because of Kickstarter, because I know I have the economics there, that we can keep doing the series, and then we can just bring it to the direct market and bring out those next arcs as well.
I want to speculate as to what you're talking about, but that's not the point of this. So Travis, ask him an industry question, quick.
So Galarian is now on 3 issues, right? Is it 3? Or is it 2?
So we had
the one shot,
we had the one shot, and then there's 2 issues of the 5-issue miniseries. We're going to be bundling all the short stories into a trade coming early next year. Nice. And that's going to have roughly about 88 pages of Galarian short stories that tell 2 different arcs of stories. And those also, just so you know, those short stories they are important. Like they're not just short stories, like they are telling pieces of history. They're introducing characters or concepts that are important to like the Galarian miniseries as well.
Cool.
No. And then the game, the Kickstarter's for 2 and 3 now, but a 4 is coming, and then that wraps that up. 4 in the trade.
So 4 and 5.
4
and 5 will be a size issue, which of course, for me, the thought is always, now I can do 5 separate issues in the direct market. It's actually being written, in chapters. So it's like 5 separate chapters, each have a cliffhanger, but the second Kickstarter is for 2 and 3. The third Kickstarter will be for 4 and 5. Then we can put those together as a trade. Then we can start Stark. That's also, Travis, I know you'll hate this, is also set to be at least, 5 trades worth of material for that series.
Fantastic.
Whoa.
No, I actually, before this interview, I dug and I haven't found it yet, but I keep looking for my issue of the game because it's been there. It's been back because I want to get the Kickstarter version because I'm not sure if the Free Comic Book Day version has all the stuff, because Free Comic Book Day only had a little bit, right?
The Free Comic Book Day version of the game was actually the teaser that we put in the trailer. It does not
Right.
appear anywhere else. I've
Oh,
searched
okay.
for it. Yeah. So there's issue 1, issue 2. We'll do, like I said, the first 5 is the first arc, but then going forward, I'm kind of debating exactly how to do it because I have, again, all this story that I'm looking to tell. I might do it in a couple of longer one-shots. Maybe bring in another artist to do an art, a 64-page one-shot, and then bring Connor back for another arc. I just want to make sure that all the stories are moving forward, and so it's just balancing a little bit of that with the artist. And
Yeah.
plus, Connor loves doing the game, and as he's my co-creator in all of these series. So we talk a lot, not just about the creation of the books, but long term, how do we want to do these things? How do we want things to play out? How do we want to schedule things into his life? So it's wonderful to have someone of his caliber as my partner and in all of these endeavors.
Yeah, no, I mean the game has always been. I love the game. I loved White Ash, but I love the game. I love the concept. But I love that stuff. Like I'm always battle royale. Like even when Avenger Arena, like all those things. I read and watch all of them. I'm not sure what attracts me to them, but I watch and take that content in all the time. I think I want my life to be a video game. Hence why this is called Comic Level Up. It's just really. You're the only guest. I'm so sorry, Charlie. It was just this whole thing is a giant ruse. No.
Man, that was a lot of
This
work.
is actually Mojo. Is that?
Right, it's Mojo. Tell me all the secrets of the game before I get those issues, please. I was really sad I wasn't back on number 1 because I felt I deserved to be, but I was so busy that particular day. I was so mad. But that's neither here nor there. And then how I slept my way through college is not as racy as you expect. When I got the first issue, I was disappointed and pleased at the same time. A lot of content in there. So how did that came to be? What made you decide to put that out into the market? Because it's so different from. You could see some parallels of maybe just because of Connor's art, like of the game and White Ash and how you tell stuff. But you're telling things in a very different way in that book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I mean, I would say Galarian is actually racier than how I
Oh,
slept my way
100%.
through college. I mean, like that's like it's a for me, one of the story theme that I always go back to is that period right after you leave high school, or when you're in your mid-20s, when you're kind of figuring out who you are as an adult, when you're on your own. And I find that time of life really interesting because everything's open to you, but people choose one thing, and sometimes it closes off other paths. And it's like that's very clear in White Ash. Like that's what that dynamic is about. It's about choosing the path of your father, trying to forge your own identity. But sexuality is also a big part of that and figuring that out. And so for me, like that time in college is a time to explore who you're going to be. And as a writer, again, I came up through a romantic comedy, but I also, I like to write lots of different genres, and I don't want to be pigeonholed into anything. So it was for me like it's a thriller. It's a little bit of the girlfriend experience meets How to Get Away with Murder. And I had this idea for a 12-issue series that was going to be set in this world of this elite liberal arts college, following this young freshman journalism major who uncovers that one of her professors is running a high-end escort service using some of his students as call girls. But it's not really about like the trysts. It's about the interpersonal relationships between these young women and the bonding that they're having. But also like there's a girl who's disappeared, and so there's the question of like, was she murdered? What happened to her? And this young woman is investigating everything, but she's also becoming friends with these girls she's investigating. So it just gets a little bit complicated. And I wanted to see if I could try to tell that story in comics, because it's not the comics, right? And I've just been having a lot of success doing other things, and so I wanted to see, can I sustain this series too? Because if I can sustain this series, I can really to look, because I feel like this is so far away from some of the other things, but I knew I had this idea for a story. You know, I have another horror film not a film, but a horror comic I'm looking to do at one point. I have a big epic sci-fi. You know, I have my Edgar Rice Burroughs, John Carter of Mars-esque, you know,
Right.
three, you know, huge graphic novel kind of world that I'm looking to do too. But, you know, you just have to find the time to fit everything in and just start building it up. And I think like that's the other thing when you talk about like leveling up, it's one thing to be able to do one series. It's another thing to be able to do two. And you know this, Travis, like when you start juggling the production on several different series, that's when it starts getting really hard, because it's not just about the writing. It's about allocating your time in the right ways. You know, should my time be spent writing? Should it be spent in promotion? Should it be spent in outreach? You have to really, you know, and I think for a lot of creatives, that kind of left brain planning is not intrinsic to us, right? You have to kind of look at a map of the year. It's not what's coming next. It's like, what am I going to need to do now to hit these marks 6 to 8 months down the road? So I spend a lot of time always looking at the big calendar for the year, for the next 2 or 3 years. What Kickstarters would I want to have hit? Books, you know, how can I balance everything out? So it's like there's a lot of that. So I would say like one book to two at the same time. It's a big shift. It's like having one kid or having two. You know, the kid to two, to jump from 2 kids to 3 kids, you know, and after 3 kids doesn't matter. It's going to be a nightmare. So you know, just you accept it.
No, that's a good point. It's hard, you know, as I'm balancing it, and then even more. I just called David today and I apologized to him, and I was like, I did not know how rough it was to do all the Kickstarter stuff and then also do the Diamond stuff, and not just like because Kickstarter I can launch whenever I'm done, whenever I want. I can go. April is my deadline. I can launch anytime in April and figure it out. Obviously, I want to do a promotion, but they're like, hey, you need the Diamond solicits here. You need the press release here. You need the covers for this and that. And then you've got to start calling stores, and you only have this much time before it's order cutoff, you know, to get your order number. So I have to do all of that as well as maintain a massive Kickstarter schedule because I put out 6 books this year on Kickstarter. So it's kudos to you, Charlie, to be able to do that, you know, and you even took one step further. I'm just a creator on that. You were just like, I'm going to co-publish with David and approve books and strike deals with Luna and all this other crazy shenanigans, manage teams, sales things, cons, like all the things that you guys did. I don't know how you guys did it because I'm dying here just trying to do the one Diamond book.
Well, I'll basically say David did it all. So, you know,
okay.
we'll just put it on him.
That
cool.
makes sense. David said that too, so that makes sense. That checks out.
Yeah. But no, it is a lot, and I think like when you are in a position like being publisher, it also becomes hard to promote your own work because you feel like you should be promoting other people all of the time, and you feel guilty when you're on a podcast and you're not mentioning, you know, that By the Horns is putting out another great book this week, or like that right now, you know, Coins of Judas is in previews and that people should be ordering, telling their local stores. What's the pre-order on that, Travis?
I actually don't know it off the top of my head. I can get you it in 2 seconds, but I do not have it off the top of my head.
So lesson number 1 for creators who want to level up: always know your pre-order code. So when someone asks you, you can code.
I told my shop specifically not to order it.
No, do not order it. Can you actually order -10 so we can take it from other stores and make sure they don't get it?
Yes.
But yeah, like, but I do think like it's a hard balance, and you know, one of the reasons that I'll just say that I stepped back from Scout was I didn't think I could do that balancedly anymore, and I think it was fair to other creators for me to try to be promoting them and have all the things that I had going on, and it wasn't a balance that I could sustain, and I think I would have burned myself out, and that wouldn't have been fair to them or fair to me. That said, if I'm doing things on Kickstarter, there I have a platform that's very easy for me to promote other creators in a way that I didn't have it organically through Scout.
Right. No, absolutely. But let's change from your stuff to you writing for other people. So one of our rules to join us is writing for somebody else, and you have done so with the Adept. So talk about that book, how that came to be, how you got the gig, how you manage that with all your hundred story arcs of everything, as we've discussed.
Well, to be honest, like that was an interesting opportunity that came to me when I was at LA Comic Con. I was actually speaking on a panel about Kickstarting, and Immortal Studios was thinking about launching the Adept on Kickstarter, so they were going through different Kickstarter panels. And Peter, who owns the company, came up to me afterwards, just talked, and he said, would you give us some, can we meet and talk, have lunch, talk about Kickstarter? And into a conversation where he's saying, I'm looking to build this big interconnected wuxia universe, and I kind of need some help doing it, and would you be interested in coming on board? Because he had read some of my books, and he had seen me talk about Kickstarter. And so I said to him, your company is also about authentic Asian representation, and I said, I'm not sure this is
Right.
like the best thing to write the flagship title. And he's like, yeah, no, of course, we want to pair you with someone. And so then basically my role of producer and writer, or editor and writer, in the sense that, I was working with Peter to build the first pillar of what the Immortal Storyverse was going to be, and creating this character. And for, people tuning into the show, he's got his father in China basically was like the Stephen King of wuxia, and had written all these novels. And, he just loves like that genre. Wuxia is like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, for people who don't know. Like that's the shorthand I usually use. And so he had access to this whole library, and he's like, we're going to base some of the comics on some of my dad's work, but we're going to create this new one to kick everything off, called the Adept. And so he and I came up with concepts, but we were also in the interim interviewing writers to bring on to work with me. And we interviewed a bunch of people, but Tasha who came in, I was like, oh my God, this woman is incredible, absolutely incredible. I would love to work with her. And so she got the job, and then promptly got all these other jobs. And by other jobs, I mean, they hired her to, she got hired on the Witcher animated series that they were writing. She got hired to write Red Sonja. She is the named screenwriter on the Red Sonja movie that's being filmed by Millennium right now. Millennium. And so is the showrunner on the Lara Croft animated series, which is in production at Netflix right now. So that's like my partner on that book, the kind of woman I get to work with. And so like that's been an amazing relationship, just working with her. And the two of us batting ideas back and forth to try to flesh out this new universe and create this character. Did you have a question, Todd? Like I'm seeing the eyes go. Just
no. Oh, I have like 1,000 questions, but I'm gonna let you. I'm just gonna let you keep talking. I think I said whoa, because that is an impressive partner to have on a book.
Yeah, I mean, and she's also great.
That's a lot.
I mean, I think like it's and this is something else. Like if you've ever collaborated with someone before, it has to be the right person, or your egos are stepping all over each other as you're battling for a line, or you're battling for a scene. And like for me, it's a little bit easier because this is not White Ash. Like, right, I have my baby off to the side. Mm-hmm. We're playing with someone else's kid, so if we screw it up, it's someone else's kid.
Yeah,
but
whatever. You can drop it on its head. Who cares?
That's right. But thankfully, we've created something that's just really great over there. And then the quick story on that, it's about this young woman who had this incredibly traumatic childhood, went through the foster system, but dreams of this this kung fu master who was coming in and training her and putting her through all the paces. And she was having anger outbursts, and he was trying to help her control that, but she wasn't sure whether she was going crazy. And she was having these bouts of rage, and like she's having visions of being trained by this guy, and am I nuts or not? And so she like kind of ran away. Her sister was also in the foster system when she ran away from her sister. And so the story opens as she's in her mid-20s, and she's now trying to rebuild a relationship with her sister. And because what happened was, like 3 years earlier, the visions disappeared. And she's like, okay, maybe I was crazy. Now I can rebuild my life. I'm not having these visions. I'm a normal person again. So she tried to reconnect with her sister. That's going kind of okay. And they end up going to this concert where there's this rock star, Sasha True, who's going to be playing that night. And then there's this terrorist attack that hits the stadium. And, in that moment, she has to kind of put everything that she may have learned or may not have learned to the test to try to, almost like a Die Hard moment. Like, am I crazy or am I a kung fu master? Now is the time I'm going to find out. And then she sees on stage that master who had trained her. So like, it's the guy, she has to get through all of the guys to try to get to the person who may have the answers to what's been driving her mad for the last 10 years. And that's like how the book kind of opens. And goes.
So you wrote the sequel to Kill Bill, is what you're saying?
The prequel?
No, the sequel. Remember the daughter?
The sequel. Oh yeah, the daughter.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, good. I mean, I don't think Quentin's going to get to it, so at least somebody's doing it. So I appreciate that, Charlie.
That's right. That's right.
That's really cool.
That's
a really cool premise and something pretty unique, while seemingly staying true to what I've seen from what the feel you're trying to get. So that's awesome.
Well, and the other nice thing about this, which is unlike anything that I've ever been a part of, is the commitment to authenticity. So we have a real life Shaolin monk kung fu master who is the fight choreographer on the book.
Nice.
Who's actually he used to run Kung Fu magazine. And so he supervises every fight scene that happens in the book to make sure it's real moves. It's the kind
could
of
actually happen and it's not fake. Yeah. That's cool.
And also, like, in his mind, because I can't speak to that, like there's an emotional response that would, dictate a certain kind of move. So it's like he's actually writing a scene there. It's like, if you're angry, it would be this. If you're depressed, it would be this kind of move. Like, it's like, so there's a whole level there that I think goes over most people's head, but that's the care that's being put into that series.
Or even if it's not over your head, it's subconsciously you're still able to pick it up, and you might not even know why, like, because it's the care is put in there. So maybe you're getting emotions, but you're not really getting it. It's just the fight scene and you're kind of just vibing with it.
Yeah.
That's neat. I've never heard of that. And that's really cool.
So that's going to start coming out, I think in February, maybe March, through
Sweet.
Dynamite. It started out in Kickstarter, and now it's moving to Dynamite. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
but I think
that's not where I would have expected it to be coming out of. So, all right, cool.
There's a lot of ex-DC people who went to Dynamite, and there are ex-DC people who are also helping run Immortal Studios. So I think there was a natural partnership.
So it's all those connections are matching up. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Todd, is this the first time you've heard about Immortal Studios tonight?
Yes, this would be it. No, wait. I feel like I heard about it for like ancillary to another person I was talking to.
Yeah, Ryland Grant does one as well. That's another big.
I think that's where I first heard the name, but I didn't know the origins or what was going with it. It's very cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
And the character that Ryland is writing is actually her master. But
nice.
A prequel from 100 years earlier.
Are they happening at the same time? Like, are they released at the same time?
That one takes place during the Rebellion. The then is to do the first arc of the Adept, then do the next arc of another.
That's what I was curious if they were going to come out at the same time or not. Sweet, that's cool.
I think it's like one after another to start telling that big tapestry.
Start rolling it.
They want to build an interconnected universe.
Yeah,
So,
it's a big feat.
it
I've heard
is.
karate.
It is.
I've heard karate things do really well these days. It's just what I heard from Netflix mostly.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think they put as much care into their fight scenes as Immortal Studios does, though. Cobra Kai, I don't think.
80s music into theirs.
It sounds real cool.
Which is just as important. I hope they have an 80s guy who's like, what kind, if he was raging, what would Danielson listen to? Let's go
That's
through
right.
the 80s.
Right.
Are you gonna have playlists or music involved with the Adept or anything like that?
They might. I mean, they're doing a lot. And
These big
some
spanning
links
things wouldn't surprise me. That's cool. Nice.
So I think it's time for the questions. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll be right back, and then you tell one of them.
All right. So we have a series of questions. Todd has to pee a lot if you've never been on a live stream with him. So that's what he's doing. Let's not pretend. But we have a series of questions, Charlie, that we're going to ask everyone who's on this show. So hopefully you have solid, good answers to this. So you ready?
Sure.
All right. So number one.
Was that enthusiastic enough? Yes. I'm ready.
It was. He's doing blow off screen. Todd, did you do blow off screen? David wants to know.
Nope. Just grabbing a hams.
Okay. All right. So what do you think makes you stand out in the comic market? You, Charlie Stickney.
Well, it's my ability to handle a beer.
I said
this is far in life.
Todd, this is going to be a professional, serious cover, and we were doing very well, a couple of jokes, and then you just start kegging.
Yep, I'm already done with the professional. I'm out.
All right, Charlie. What do you think makes you stand out in the comic books market?
Well, is the question about me as a creator, or is it the books that I put out? Because I think those are two very different things.
Yes.
Yes.
If you want to start with me as a creator,
sure.
I think like the brand that I like to think that I have built is on kindness, and that I'm available to a lot of people on Twitter, at conventions, and that I make myself available to a lot of people, and that the word has spread. I also pay people, very well based on what I can afford from the Kickstarters, and the Kickstarters have done really well. So for the most part, people feel good about the wages they're making when they work with me. So I think like there's a element of trust that has really helped me, because I coming from film and television, I'll just like there's so much more money there, right?
Sure.
And so coming to this, everyone has to be doing it because they love it, right? And in my mind, there's not enough money to get so backstabby, or like we have to help each other, because this is only something that you can do for love. If it was competing for a script for a TV show, yeah, I mean shiv that person, but this is like for a comic job, right? Like who, like I'm not saying who cares, but like it's the the amount that, yeah, exactly. And I think that being part of the community makes everything easier for other people. And so I tried to be someone who builds community, who brings people together. Travis, I think you do a great job of this on some of the live streams that you've done. And I think that's why creators like you. That's an important thing, being a likable, member of the comic book community, because that makes it easier for you to network. It makes it easier for you to find, creators to work with you, to, be able to get the right cover artists to say yes to your book, even if it's not coming out through Image. I mean, like for them, like it's a step down in branding, but they want to work with you, so they're willing to do it. So for me, I think I've created a brand of a person that people want to work with, because I do want to work with other creators. in terms of why my books have stood out, the books have done okay in the direct market. My books have stood out on Kickstarter because I'm able to connect with people, because I produce a book that is a great book. I have Connor Hughes, I have Romana Mornelli, I have, and then I have characters that people like. I think, again, going back to what we started this whole conversation with, um, you know, having those characters that people can fall in love with, that people care about what happens to them as characters. You want to see where their story is going to go next. So I think investing in that, it makes a big difference.
That's good. I wish I didn't have more questions, because that would have been a great ending. But we've
Yep.
got more. So hopefully you can keep up the momentum. Todd, do you want to ask one of yours before we go, or do you want to ask yours at the end?
Sure. Before we move on to instilling, because it seems, I'll say it's nice that I'm really happy that you're not overly humble. It's one of my least favorite traits. Like, you have something popular, and I appreciate that you like recognize it, because I also think it makes it so you can appreciate it more by just being real. Like, this thing is popular and people love it, and I love that you embrace that. I think that's important. So do you feel like you've leveled up in a substantial way? And is there a specific moment in your career that you felt like a turn, like you could actually see, like, yep, that's it, this
Well,
is my
I
moment?
will say that San Diego Comic-Con this year was, for me, definitely a moment where I realized how much things had changed. Because not only did I have a booth where I had Connor, I had this other artist, Nick Byers, who was there running the booth for me, so I was able to be on the floor, I was able to talk to people, but just the number of other publishers that I knew people everywhere, that I was on these panels, and like getting invited to be on things versus trying to push your way onto things, I think is a big shift. When if you have a creator, or like, hey, like, you have the people who reach out to your podcast, and you have the people that your podcast reaches out to, right? And like, that's two different categories. Like, you're hoping this person will come on your show versus the person who's hoping that the show will let them on, right?
Yeah,
And so
100%.
definitely at San Diego this year, like, there was White Ash was doing fine, but it was just the sense that the industry no longer felt like this big thing that I was trying to figure out. I had a place in the industry, and talking to, I had a conversation with Adam Kubert at San Diego Comic-Con, and that didn't feel unnatural, right? Like I think, and I'm not trying to compare myself to him, in any scope or sense of, but to be able to have a conversation with people that you put maybe up here at one point, and be like, hey, we can now just converse. And even if maybe our careers aren't equal, they see you as a creator that's worth having a conversation with.
Yeah,
right?
it's a peer. Instead of
a
step down, you're still peers. You might be at different parts, but it's peer to peer instead of like fan to creator.
Yes.
That's a big difference.
And so, like, that was everything that happened at San Diego felt like that. So that was
awesome.
Versus, I think, before the pandemic, when I was there, I was the person, like, I had a table, but I was still like trying to make inroads here. Will this person talk to me? Will this person not talk to me?
The hustle.
And now I didn't have to hustle. It was just, let me see my friends. And I think that's a big difference, where you feel part of what's going on.
That's a great answer.
Amazing.
All right, so for the next one, so in this career, it's very difficult. Things can change in a minute. We've seen many people who've had very successful Kickstarters and they haven't. And then we've seen, you look at Marvel and DC, you basically, like, let's say my goal is to work for Marvel and DC. Your goal may not be that. But even if I got there tomorrow, it's like a 5 to 10 year window. That's it. look at anybody's career up there. You only get a little bit of finite time to be at that, and then you may get a series now and then, but you're not going to be that guy who's writing 3 books, who's the architect. So that question to you is, what makes you keep going when this career becomes difficult?
So I think part of my response to that question is this part of the career has not been difficult for me.
Okay.
And that's, I say that in contrast to, I was working in film, I was working in animation. Trying to make inroads there was so much more difficult and more frustrating. You have small successes, you might get paid a lot of money for something no one ever makes, right? And so that's also really frustrating. To write us 15 people, but you got paid $100,000 for it. So you're happy and it's paying the bills, but it's not doing that thing that you want to do, which is tell stories. So I was struggling there to get things made, but I was still, I had a lot of meetings. I had a lot of things almost set up. So it was just a frustrating experience. So I had 15 years of frustration with the film industry where I was making money, but nothing was getting made, versus the comic industry where the path has been, wait, I get to make these things that I love and I get to share them with people. Okay, I don't make any money, but I get to make these things. So it's been such a nice trade-off. And that, I think, yeah, it's hard to do all of this. You have to take pleasure in the fact that you're making something and you're connecting with an audience. So I think that's the answer. You have to honor what you've done. You have to, for me, I have this huge audience on Kickstarter. I have people who come up to me, again, going back to San Diego and talking about leveling up and making it, knowing that your stuff moves someone, means, I think that those are the little pieces you take in, and that's why you keep doing it. And I was, at San Diego, Connor was going off, he was going to go on a lunch break. And so I was at the table and I saw this woman coming up. I look at people and you're like, okay, they're not my customer. Maybe they're lost, maybe they're looking for directions. But I was like, here comes this woman in her probably early 60s, and she's coming up to the table. And Connor was standing in front of the table. I'm like, dude, you can't stand in front of the table. I'm trying to sell stuff here. So I'm giving him the little just get out of the way, which I thought was subtle, but she picked it up and she looked at it and she looked at me. She goes, oh no, he doesn't have to move. And I was like, oh no, it's fine. I said, he's just the artist. And she does this. And she looks at him and she goes, are you Connor Hughes? And he's like, yes. And then she just looks over at me and she goes, are you Charlie Stickney? And I was like, yes. She did that again. And I know it was one of the greatest moments of anything I had ever created, just to see that pure joy on the face of someone who is interacting with me, that
really
that something I had written, that something I had created had moved them. And I think when you get that, that's what you have to latch on to. I think the business side of how to make money, of how to continue on, is a whole different conversation, because there are ways to make money. There are ways to build something that's sustainable, and that's always something I thought from the very beginning. What's my 5-year plan? What's my 10-year plan to be able to something economically sustainable so I can keep creating things? But emotionally, how you keep going is you find those moments and you never forget that what you're doing means something to people, because if people are buying your things, it means something to them if they keep doing it.
That's a good answer. I'm glad that you're the interviewee instead of you not interviewing me, because those questions would not be as poetic coming from my mouth. It'd be like, I did a thing. I'm proud of it. I'm glad that people read it. You have heartfelt stories.
Comics are cool.
Comics are cool. All right.
I'm just making it all.
That's fine. That's hey.
Sounds.
which shows examples of why your Kickstarters do better than mine. You're clearly better at telling stories. um, anyways, so what does, because when I first talked about this is one of the reasons why you're my first guest, is my definition of leveling up is right now, right? I want to get a direct market. I want to get there. My goal is to get to the big two at some point. I want to produce as much content as I can that hopefully moves people, that people like, that shows that I can do multiple things and I can work well with people doing anthologies, like all these things. In fact, like, to be honest, like I have tons of like other anthology ideas, but I'm not doing any of them because I don't want to be. It's just a matter of time before you're like, you're really good at publishing. Maybe you should stick with that. No, I know I'm good at that. That's not what I want to do. I want to write and create. So for you, because I know what my leveling up is, but what is your leveling up? What does leveling up for Charlie look like? What does 5 years from now Charlie look like? Who's created this? What does that look like?
Well, I think Charlie 5 years from now needs to be careful, because I think success gives you opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to make sure you're taking the right opportunities so you continue having a career that you enjoy. So for me, leveling up is picking the right next path. And, it's, again, as someone who has had a foot in the film industry, the television industry, there is a level up where White gets picked up as a TV series. Then make the right choice. Is that right choice? Is the right choice where I go on as the showrunner, or is the right choice where I Kirkman it, and be like, I'm going to be your consultant, but you guys are going to go do this thing, and I'm going to continue making things exactly the way I want to, but I'm going to make money from that TV show so I can keep making this thing I love. And like for me, to be perfectly honest, I've gone back and forth on both minds. There's part of me that would be excited to showrun, the White Ash universe as, a big series that goes back and forth between features and TV shows, because I have the material to do that. That said, I really am enjoying making content. So if leveling up, the two different paths to leveling up, it's like, does it become this big multimedia thing that people embrace everywhere? Or is it becoming, say, the next, I don't want to say saga, because I think that's too big of a step up. I don't want to quite say that's 2 levels up, right? But I would not mind it being a series that all of a sudden can go direct market and sustain itself there. I love being on Kickstarter, but there is a time suck when you're doing Kickstarters. If there was a way for Wash to become a big enough brand where I just put it out, in the direct market, and it's making enough revenue to keep paying the same rates that I can pay people from doing Kickstarters, then maybe that's leveling up. So I think it depends on which version of these opportunities present themselves. But I will say, like, I am enjoying this portion of my life a lot. And it's a wonderful place to be in, where I'm getting to create things where everything that I do, and I don't know, Travis, when you talk about those 5 to 10 year windows, maybe
Sure.
I'm in, the clock is ticking in terms of how many more years that I have that I can keep building this fan base, or maybe this is something that's going to sustain itself for even longer. But I'm in, and I think that's an important thing for all creators to do, is even though you have to have one eye on where you're going to level up to next, you have to enjoy this level that you're on right now.
That's a good answer, and definitely something that we've got to learn. I don't think you learn it when you're in it, but when you go a little bit up and you look at the people, the decisions that they're making to get to that next level, and you question some of those things and talk about, why do you want to do this? One of the first things is, when I got to the direct market, once I sat down and figured out the math, right? Well, I'm not going to make, you're like, oh, well, that'll be easier for me. Well, will it, because of this, and this? And you're not making as much when you factor in how much Diamond gets and the publisher gets, and how much that trickles down to you. And then you're not factoring in all the variant covers that you're still going to buy. Like, you're still spending money. You're spending money to get very little return, you're basically buying exposure. So what does that look like? And I think that you answered it really, really well. I asked myself, what would Charlie do?
And the answer is ride David's coattails. So
right.
Genius.
Yeah. How do you feel about the split up between you and you? How are you guys handling that? You don't have to call each other every day. Like, how's that working?
They still do, right? It's just different now.
Yeah. Well, we like to call ourselves co-friends now, just so we can keep that title.
Not full friends, but co-friends.
Co-friends.
Yeah, together we're a full friend, but like apart we're each a half friend.
Right.
At this stage of life, even half a friend is a lot.
It is.
That's nice.
Let me tell you, keeping that half friendship sometimes, it's a lot of work.
It's so much more work now. Together we're one friend. Our powers combined, one friend.
Nice. That explains a lot why I like David and Charlie. Like, I had to be friends with both of them so I could get one.
One friend. Yeah. Nice. That's why it's nice that even though I feel like I've danced around actually getting to talk with Charlie by talking to everybody around. Now I finally have a full friend, so that's nice. Thank you, Charlie. It was really good.
I just wiped pieces of myself on lots of other people. So
perfect. It's a good thing you're in LA because other parts of the country don't like that.
Did you have one more question, Todd? You had one more that was on your list?
No, I think that was it. I think you did you just did the final question.
I did. So this is it. We have leveled up today. We talked to Charlie. Again, give one more pitch out for the game that is live on Kickstarter. If you don't mind, give a quick pitch.
Yeah, the quick pitch is: imagine Sam from Quantum Leap, the original series, jumped into the body of the Highlander and had no idea what was going on and why everyone was trying to kill him all of a sudden. It's about a man named Eli Tanner who just turned 30, and people think he's player number 3 in a game that's been played for 3,000 years. So.
That old story.
That old story.
A tale as old as time. I love it. That's great. I missed out on game number 1 because I think when it came out there was a lot going on.
It was years ago.
Yeah, like when was it?
2019.
Yeah, that was not a good year for me branching out in comics.
and also, like, the last bit of advice I would give to most people is don't try to have 3 years between release of your issues on
Solid
Kickstarter,
advice.
the direct market, or really anywhere.
Unless you're Brian K. Vaughan, then you can get away with it.
Yeah.
Then it's fine because people will still buy it. But yeah, no, that's very good advice.
You say that, but I will buy Daredevil Target number 3 whenever it comes out. I'm waiting.
Good point. It's solid. There's a few that can get away with it.
I do think, like, for us in particular, it's been actually fortuitous because the White Ash verse blew up in that time. So the Kickstarter that we're doing for the game now is going to be over double what the first one was, even though it was 3 years later.
Which number 2 back then in game could have gotten to where White Ash is now, but since it stalled, now you're getting to that little pick me up, and that's great. That's really neat. Right. That's cool. That's cool. Well, yeah, everybody go check that out. It's in the description. At least I typed it in there. If it's not, go check out Charlie on Twitter, which is also in the description. You can also find me and Travis lingering around the internet. Maybe there'll be some socials for this site for this show at some point. That's not my thing. But
I don't manage my own socials well, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even do socials, so who knows?
Level up, get an intern.
There we go.
We can get an intern?
Nick.
No, I think we need Stevie. He's been fighting for a long time.
Oh, there we go. But yeah, thank you so much, Charlie. It was a pleasure to get to chat with you and hear about your insights into the industry and what you've went through. Well, I don't have a sign off for this show.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I like to set the bar low so the next guest can level up. And get
you failed. Thanks a lot. If that was your goal, you failed. So yeah, everybody. Well, it's level up time.
I'll end it, Todd. I got it.
Yes, do it.
You're trying,
Hit
Todd. So thank you guys for all coming out tonight. We have all learned something. Hopefully you have leveled up by getting some knowledge from Charlie. Don't be afraid to reach out to fellow creators, ask them questions, ask us questions, tell us guests we want. But together we can level up. One of the biggest things about comics is it is a community. It's one of the few things, like Charlie said many times, unlike the movie industry, we can grow together. We can all level up together. And shows like this and conversations like this, we can do that. We are signing off.
Ba-ding.